3, 2, 1, acciones. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know, just like I know, football season is back.
Let's go, baby.
So it's only right we're sitting in these seats with you today on this wonderful Tuesday to kind of go over what's happening and to take a little look forward at what we got coming. We got to do our check-ins before we give y'all the breakdown on how to hand in your 2-week notices to your girlfriends about your leagues, about all this, the watching and media content that you'll be having to absorb, kind of how to break it in to make sure, everybody knows what season's coming up, so we want you right for it. But first, we got to make sure Mitch is doing good, just like you're doing good, and we'll have to make sure I'm doing good, just like hopefully the person next to you is doing good. So, Mitch, tell the people what's going on.
Man.
How you doing?
Your boy is tired. Very, very tired. But excited to come here, talk sports. One of my favorite things to do outside of just getting that money, you know what I'm saying? But
bag talk.
I'm just out here ready to talk these sports, ready to get down, and then back to the grind the next day. You know what I'm saying? How you doing?
Absolutely. I'm doing good, man. As you guys know, I'm on this grind for the Masters, so that'll be our little side story, our little side quest that I'll be able to update you guys on as we're progressing through our sports season here as well. I'm in year 1, so day 1 was yesterday. Got back on campus, after 10 years, pretty much 9 years. Let me not age myself like that.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute, man. And it felt like that. So, there was a little ups and downs of dealing with the student life and, public transportation for all you students and all you people that use public transportation. I know y'all feel me. So I had to get right. I'm shaking off the rust. But, I'm really excited for the semester. I feel like I have some wonderful teachers. I feel like the stuff we're learning about is up my alley. So, this Tuesday night excursion that I get to have with you and my boy Reek behind the cameras, where we kind of get to decompress and talk about some of the things we love, some of the things that we're going to watch on our own time, is just super helpful. And it only reminds me of that when I get these moments as I'm starting new ventures elsewhere, because I look forward to this regardless of what I got going on. So happy to be here with you guys, the Say Something family. Welcome back to another episode of Say Something, the show. We got a cool agenda here. Football, like we said, it's football. The season is here. Get your 2-week notices in. It's now or never. To be fair to you ladies, it's there's going to be some days occupied for those of you who are full-fledged NFLers. And later you guys can maybe put some stories down there, whether you're on either side of that note. Go ahead and drop in the comments if you've given or received one of those notes. And maybe we'll do an episode special on just how to, curate one of those wonderful notes.
Easy.
Yeah, we want transparency. We want love here. And it has nothing to do, with the quality of love between the two. It just has to do with what's on the tube. So
it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, 100%, right? So, we got some NCAA, we got some NFL, and we'll make sure we also touch a little bit on the fantasy side of things, as well as the NBA, and as well as letting my boy take the hot corner over, as always, with the MLB. So let's start off with the first game of the season.
Oh, boy.
We got, a big name school, 2 semi-big name schools, one, actual, prestige. Big, what you would call blue
school.
chippers. Yeah, and they went out there against Georgia Tech in Ireland and lost 24-21, which I think is fitting in terms of, not for Florida State and not to disrespect those players or anything, but in terms of college football, right? Just to describe the kind of intensity that happens week to week, right? And also the just absolute coin flip that is college football week to week, where it's like, as much as we want to say they're favorites, as much as we want to say, this guy's ranked higher, so, there must be, stronger players on that team. These are college students, and if you guys watched, the Little League World Series, obviously it's not at the same level as that, but there's just so many similarities just in terms of you don't know who's coming today. It all looks decent on paper, but at the end of the day, you got to line up, get between those white lines, and actually put stuff on the scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
And what we saw from Florida State is they are more hype than they are real right now. And, I think that that'll be, until I'm proven otherwise, I think that'll be the story as it has in a couple years previous.
Yeah.
That'll be the storyline of this year's college football season. I think there's going to be a lot of, this is the guy, knocked out, move on to the next, same thing, so on and so forth.
Well, who knows if this is was this even more bad for them last year, coming off that season, saying, we should have been in the finals.
Yeah.
And then now you're losing the first game of the season.
Absolutely.
Are those guys from last year going to say, that was last year's team, so it's not the same? Are they going to jump ship already? Or are they going to be like, hey, it's just one game. We could come back and sweep the rest of the games out there. So hopefully they can make a bounce back. But I'm kind of like you, where it's like over the last few years, it's kind of been underwhelming. And even the undefeated season, it just, I don't know. It was like, did they really have competition in any of those games that time? So I don't know. Florida State's kind of been for me over the years, especially coming from those Jameis and Cook years back then.
Yeah, and they always seem to have a pretty decent roster. They always seem to get some solid transfers, and just it doesn't really pan out. And then even when it does, like you mentioned with last year, the schedule, there's always something, a blemish with what's going on with that in terms of Florida State's resume that I think is too big to overlook. It's not just magic that your undefeated season so happened to also fall in line with your weakest strength of schedule.
Right, exactly. And don't act like Georgia shouldn't have been in there over Florida State. Because Georgia missed out too, and they definitely could have won the championship.
For sure.
Way more optimistically than Florida State.
Absolutely. And I think what's also clear is that Florida State, you're already done for this year in terms of, trying to get to that playoff. I don't want to say it's 100%, but let's put it at 97. Let's start at 97.
If we're losing this one, are we really expecting to, win out the rest of the games?
And even so, you went undefeated last year and didn't get there. So you've now lost to an unranked team who I think may end up being ranked if they can kind of hold on. They seem like they're actually strong.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then that dude Haynes, that quarterback, he seems like he's a great addition for them.
Good head on his shoulders.
Yeah. He seems like he knows how to run that offense, and they're not going to make mistakes. But you look at DJU, and this is just, I think this for me is a stamp on him just not being the quarterback we all thought he could be, and I think it's now fine to put that, not bust, but that meh.
Again,
stamp on him.
It's a new team, new year, new guys to get used to. So maybe this was just the first game. We had a game all the way in Ireland. Guys are out having fun too. It's a good time. Maybe they just weren't all the way focused this game. And moving forward, he could be that guy to maybe make a Heisman push, because that's what they're going to need. That's what he's going to need for anybody to have any more faith in him.
Yeah, and I hope you're listening to Mitch. I hope because he must be one of the very few guys in your support corner right now, because you've been just about everywhere last year. It was run heavy, and you were complaining about that and how, they just didn't have the resources to make you the quarterback you wanted to be after you left the school that had every resource possible, and you literally drowned. And then you moved to Florida State, where they said, oh, my God, matter of fact, they just put a better set of skill position players around him than they had at Clemson.
Yeah.
You got Roydell Williams, one of the top running backs. You got all these transfer wide receivers who are supposed to be 4 or 5 stars doing all this stuff, and you threw for 198 yards. Ooh. You know what I mean?
Russell Wilson.
I'm doing that in a half with Mendoza on Cal.
Mendoza is about to go for like 250 against Auburn.
Come on, man.
Let's go, baby.
Albeit it's a video game, but let's be real. Yeah, no, I'm trying to hit some games this year. Now that I know the roster. Right. I just wanted to give that quick update. There were other games that happened, but for the sake of time, we're usually going to just try to update you guys on the biggest games that happened. And with this game, to be honest, there's not a lot to talk about. You know what I mean? It was Florida State started off strong, going right down the field, scoring, then getting the 2-point. And then from there, it was very stagnant ball. Georgia Tech just controlled it. They really rushed up and down the field, controlled the game clock, controlled the time of possession. And from there, before you knew it, it was like, whoa, we're in the fourth quarter. Hold on, what's going on? And they were able to, of course, keep it close, which, as we all know, any underdog team, just keep it close towards the end. And you got a real shot at doing something big here.
Last team with the ball.
100%.
Downfield.
And did exactly what any team, I guess, who's in that position would do, which is, get a big rushing play to get them in position to make the game-winning field goal, which was still quite the kick, right? This is a 44-yard kick. I thought the guy could easily have missed it.
Well, they were saying bro was making it from like 60 yards.
Right, but then he had just missed the one prior.
Right, no, right.
So it was like when he's walking up, I'm like, there's no way.
Just remind me of Seabass, for all my Raider fans, Sebastian, just put it down there. He might make it. You never know. 60, 70 yards. He's that guy. He's got that foot.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But that does remind me of Aubrey from Dallas right now. They do say he's like on some like out of this world, like 65-yarders. Anyway, so, we'll make sure we're keeping you guys up to date on everything that happens as this, these games start coming in a little more frequently. But, again, we will be on the upset train all year. This is what college football is for. And don't worry, we'll have much more in-depth box score, going over this stuff, like we said, quarter to quarter detail. But with this game, we're just getting started. So we want to make sure we can touch on the overview of this football season.
Right.
So next we got our Heisman hopefuls. So we're just going to go down. This is according to Vegas. These are the top odds to win it. I'm not going to go over the odds. This is not a betting show, but we're just going to go in order how they were ranked based on odds. We start off with Carson Beck from Georgia. For those who are familiar, this guy has been there. Yeah, he's been there now for a year. This guy's huge. He's like 6'5", real beast. He can run enough. Definitely wouldn't be considered a scrambler by any means. Definitely a traditional pocket passer. But this dude is something Georgia's not really used to having. Very strong-armed and very, very athletic in terms of his build. They're very used to having these kind of smaller, frailer, field general kind of guys. And not to say he's not, but he's a beast.
So would you say he's more Matthew Stafford than maybe like Jake Fromm or who's the last quarterback they just had who left? Who was Stetson Bennett. He's less Stetson Bennett and Jake Fromm and more Matt Stafford?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Really big arm. I think he has a shot to be the number one pick this next year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Carson?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if he has another year moving forward, I think he could.
Is he not a product of Georgia having amazing players?
I think it helps, but I think, again, like I'm saying, he's one of these guys that he's definitely not traditional in the sense of who they've had prior. He throws guys open. He has the arm strength that kind of aids these guys, if anything, as opposed to them being that buffer or aid to him.
Okay.
And I think that where he's gotten a lot better and we'll see this year is going to be him reading the field. I think overall what you've seen in his time with Georgia is that it's starting to slow down, and so now he can use those athletic traits, whereas in the beginning you could tell, he's a little rushed. I think in the moment might have been a little too much. He's in Georgia.
Senior or a junior?
I believe he's a junior now.
Junior? Okay.
And he may have redshirted, but I'll get that in a second as well. Next, we have Quinn Ewers, quarterback, Texas. Guy's a baller as well. It'll be interesting to see. Texas's QB room has just been stuffed with talent.
Archie.
Stuffed with talent.
Where you at, Archie?
They have just struggled to get guys out there. They keep getting, I forget the other guy was like Malik Murphy, I want to say was his name as well. These guys are top 10 recruits in their class.
Yeah, I don't know. They're tripping. They need to transfer.
And they're not able to figure out how to stagger this a little better. I think Malik Murphy, I think he ended up transferring. But still Archie's waiting in the wings behind Quinn Ewers, which, if anything, that should speak to Quinn Ewers' talent. If you're able to fend that off, unless something comes out later down the line where it's, there has been some extreme bias towards Quinn Ewers that we didn't hear about. He was auto winning the job, whatever the case is. But this guy can really play. Before things got a little mudded with the guys around him, people were talking about him being
That guy.
Excuse me, a potential number 1 overall pick. He stayed a little longer than I think people thought. Because
more than Archie thought.
Yeah, for real. I think people thought he might leave last year, but he hasn't really had that year yet where I think he feels solid enough to go test those waters. But the team is really good, and at the end of the day, Texas is now at least legit, right? And are they going to win the whole thing? I don't know, right? But are they where I'm used to them being, which was like, we can count on you for about 3 games. You guys will go 3-0, and then it's all out the window. Who cares from there?
Who's the last good quarterback from Texas?
I mean, in terms of like translating to the NFL,
yeah,
probably like Vince Young is like the last time. Yeah.
So this is just giving me remnants of Colt McCoy. So maybe you might do something in college.
Yeah, but Colt McCoy was. I just think
that's how I think of Texas quarterbacks at this point, especially with how we're talking about how they can't figure it out there. It's like you got 3 top 10 guys and none of them are good enough to just put one just above. Like if you're going to be the number 1 starter, then why aren't you putting up number 1 numbers?
Well, I mean,
am I just like not watching Quinn enough to see how good he is? Because if you got I don't know, it just seems like a lot of fool's gold to me.
I will say he's been putting up QB1 numbers for sure. He's been a part of a top 5 offense in college for the last 2 years, I think. So, for me, it's been a question of can they play defense, which is remains to be seen. That's also very interesting because they always have like recruiting classes on defense that are nuts, where you're just like 5-star, 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 and it's always like I don't know what happens.
Who doesn't want to go to UT?
Right. But anyway, enough of Quinn Ewers. We'll see how he pans out. He has, again, a great supporting cast. Lots of guys now love going to Texas. UT is big on recruiting maps. So we'll see what he can do.
Yeah.
Next, we have Nico Imaliava. Right? Ooh. Yeah, get that one out. Imaliava. Right? Is
that the Brown in Tennessee?
Yeah. Okay. Tennessee quarterback. This dude has been talked about for a while. I don't know if you guys remember, they were talking about Joe, I think his name's Joe Milton.
Yeah.
So they were talking about Joe Milton. So be wary of Tennessee fans, okay? They love these like large athletic build QBs, and I don't always know if they know what they're talking about.
Right.
Last year, Brett did have a down year. Joe Milton could have had a better season. I'm not sitting here. I don't want to shoot too many strays Joe Milton's way. But Nico has a lot to prove. This is a guy who is basically your NCAA 25 quarterback dynasty. If you're a lover of that kind of stuff, you're grabbing him, right?
Like if it was basketball equivalent to like top recruit AAU,
Yeah. And this guy's like the frame you want. He can get athletic enough in terms
crazy
of
arm angles.
He's 6'5". He can move. The real question will be about, how do you bulk him up a little bit to get him right for some of those hits. But
lanky dude.
Yeah, this guy can do it all, and he's been a prestigious recruit for a while now. He was a part of a very well-known circuit football team, when he was in high school that was dominant. So used to the lights. Remains to be seen as he takes over at the start of this year if Heisman is truly in the cards. Ooh. But
big talk.
It should show you how people think of him with the fact that he's even on this list.
Right.
Next, we have Jalen Milroe, Alabama quarterback. This is a guy who, if you were to tell me a couple of years ago he had a shot, I would laugh in your face. But he's really grown within this offense. He's become so much better of a passer, and he's really a threat with his legs. So to me, he's starting to etch towards like Jalen Hurts territory in terms of like impact. And luckily there is no Tua right behind him ready to take over. But I think that, this guy, if he's going to do it, a lot of it will be on his feet.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of the stats that make him a Heisman winner come from the legs. Again, always talented. It'll be interesting to see as a new coach, right? You got Brody from Washington taking over. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with DeBoer as the head coach. But I think Jalen Milroe, he should be on this list.
Yeah, I think he's probably the most likely out of any of the guys. I mean, I know there's more people to name off, but if he does his thing for Alabama, I think he's primed to be the guy that they're like, yep, just ride that Jalen Milroe train.
Yep. Next, we have another SEC member, Jackson Dart, Old
Darty.
Miss quarterback. This is a guy who, like,
Ole Miss.
He's very interesting to watch. I don't know, like, he actually is an NFL prospect, and I don't know how much weight I put on that. Because when I watch him, I see a lot of, like, the really good college quarterbacks that I've seen in the past in him.
I mean, that name though, come on,
right? But I mean, even if you remember Matt Corral, who was at Ole Miss not that long ago, similar vibe, right? This is a guy that, he's athletic. He's definitely not like a prototypical pocket passer, but I also wouldn't say he's like a Lamar Jackson scrambler. He's kind of that
Zach
improviser. Yeah, that midi, that guy that can extend plays, use his leg when he needs to, but also has enough of an arm to not rely on either, or not rely on running, obviously. Yeah. But, it'll be interesting to see how much, all of this translates to the NFL, because they really have him, just like they had Matt Corral. He was a third-round pick. They have this guy pretty high on the draft boards. And so with another good year, because of how much people value the SEC, I mean, they really value that almost as like the G League of the NFL. So if you're a quarterback and can handle that, they say you're basically going against NFL defenses in terms of schemes, players. So obviously that gets you a little extra juice.
Show us something, Jackson. Let's see something.
Yeah, Jackson.
Take Ole Miss up.
It'd be amazing to see, man. I don't think they've had, a real...
Since Eli.
And then, probably a real, like, star type hype since, like, DK and AJ.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And then next we have Cameron Ward, Miami, who transferred from Washington State. So this dude is a baller. Yeah. This is probably my dark horse to win it. He put up astronomical numbers with Washington State. Now, we all know Washington State comes with a bit of an asterisk due to their run and gun offense, their spread offense, their air it out offense. But this is a guy, when you watched him, he was not playing with good lines. They didn't even have great receivers. As sometimes these Washington State teams have had NFL receivers out there when they're running those offenses. Yeah. This was not the case with his team. And he was putting up stats like any other quarterback we've seen in those offenses. And he added a rushing element that was never there.
Right.
And so this guy, who also will be joining forces with Damian, feels so bad that it's a Damian, not her. It can't be Hernandez.
Gotta find him.
I gotta get it right now because it's Damian Martinez. Sorry to take the pause, but I had to grab this guy because this dude was the vocal point, the absolute center of the Oregon State offense last year. Baller. He will also be on Miami. So they are getting, in my opinion, about as good as you can get in terms of transfer portal filling positions of need that really are going to make a high impact. So I think he's going to be with the best roster he's ever seen. I think that the sky is the limit for him. And I think the same can be said for Miami. They will go as far as Cam Ward goes. But if Cam Ward can be what I think he can be, I think they could easily take the ACC. And I think the playoffs could actually be in the picture for them.
Let's go, Cam. Make something happen, baby.
I had this guy was actually behind Quinn Ewers and in between Nico Imaliava. I'm sorry. I missed him just because I was so focused on getting that name right. We have Will Howard for Ohio State, who was a transfer from Kansas State. This is a guy who also is other people's dark horse. Put up great stats at Kansas State.
Transfers out here.
Yeah.
Heisman hopeful.
Yeah. There's even Dylan Gabriel you got to throw in there from Oregon who transferred in. But when I look at Will Howard, I think he'll be really good. Again, a similar story to Cameron Ward, right? A guy who's put up great stats at Kansas State is now with a better team. So you'd think, wow, he's got a pretty good shot. And Ohio State, we all know, has a pretty good track record of getting to the playoffs and getting you some exposure. And if you want to win an award, Yeah, you want to win an award, you might win one there. So lastly, we have my boy Garrett Nussmeier from LSU, who, if you guys remember, he played a little bit his freshman year when they had to dismiss a quarterback mid-season. And then we never saw from him again. So he played four games as a freshman, and then ended up coming in last year as a sophomore. Battled it out with Jaden Daniels. We all know what happened.
Lost that.
And now he actually has come back again, won that starting role, and the team is pretty much the same team that was with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
So people are thinking some good numbers should be there for him. He's a pocket passer, so he will get the receivers lots of looks, and it'll be a traditional looking offense, a little different than it was with Jaden Daniels.
Right.
But LSU has done well with those kind of quarterbacks. Lastly, we have games to watch for Saturday. We got Clemson 21 versus Georgia numero uno.
Georgia taking that.
Georgia with the smackdown. Next, we have 20 Texas A&M versus number 7 Notre Dame. It's a tough call.
That's a tough one.
Because Notre Dame's always capped.
Are we at Notre Dame? Do we know? Is it at Notre Dame?
That's a great question. Because they're always just capped.
Yeah, they're capped. I just said cap. Yeah, I'll give it to Notre Dame. I think Texas A&M. I don't know. I'm not too sure about them. If they're with the 12th man, they got a better chance. But I think Notre Dame might just pull this one out.
Yeah, I mean Notre Dame usually they start off reasonable in their years, and then they're similar to how I felt about Texas, where they're usually good for they're usually good for a couple. Okay, there's also Tennessee versus NC State, which is another ranked game that I missed.
Is that? Are these this? Is that this year?
That's this Saturday.
Oh, okay.
So it's like Cal's taking on Auburn.
But I saw that too. But Cal's playing UC Davis.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like,
yeah.
What's going on with this? Is this last year's this first?
Right. Well, I mean, it says for this Saturday.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like I know we're not playing Auburn, bro.
Right.
We're not in Alabama. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, no. Okay, so this says the 7th. So that is the following week.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so following week. Okay.
Yeah, but these ones, the ones that we read off, are from this week. Yeah. So it just extends beyond
just what we watched.
Yeah. Well, and also I had to keep scrolling down from the already. They counted basically the week that just passed as a part of week 1.
Excuse us, ESPN being all confusing.
Yeah. So basically, because Florida State and Georgia, because they played by themselves,
right?
They're getting smushed in
week 1
with the following week. So yeah, on the 31st we have Clemson, Georgia. So we were right on cue what we had. And then on Sunday, so the following day, in terms of what I think is going to happen in that game, I'm sorry. Yeah. I think it'll probably be Notre Dame, but I don't know anything about Notre Dame this year. I need to get a feel for some of these teams. It's at College Station.
Ooh, that's tough. Ooh.
I'm gonna go Notre Dame. And also Georgia's at Georgia.
Yeah,
so that'll be real tough.
Clemson's
that'll be real
faulty
tough
over the last couple of years.
And then Sunday we have 23 USC versus number 13 LSU. Both these teams are super stacked, and both have big question marks. I think his name is Miller Moss is the quarterback for USC.
Yeah.
This guy's beat out like a bunch of 5 stars to get this role. Apparently people think he's super dope, but we all haven't really seen it. I mean, he's had a little burn last year where apparently, he kind of had one of those revival moments for USC where their season was kind of falling down.
Game time's different than practice.
Right. And, apparently, he learned a lot from Caleb, and sitting behind Caleb, and, people spoke highly of him. So we'll see. Remains to be seen if he'll be able to come in and have the impact that we think he's capable of. But the guys around him, are always going to be, USC is known to fill those skill positions up. But defense will be the question for USC.
Right. They've
really struggled these last, almost 10 years now defensively. But really in these last couple seasons, for sure, I don't want to stretch it too far.
Mm-hmm.
They've been kind of in the dumpster in the Pac-12, and it's not going to get any easier.
Right. I'm definitely interested to see how good the teams from the Pac-12 who left to other conferences, how they do and how they mesh. Because we had a team in the championship last year, and we'll see how Washington does this year, how Oregon does in their respective conferences.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Oregon might be one of the biggest questions, just because of the fact that so many people value that brand on the West Coast for its West Coast ball.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, there's just a huge divide as to whether people, really think there's legitimacy behind that.
Can they hang with the big boys is what they ask.
Right. Whereas I think USC, I think some of those teams, they get a little more of a pass.
Even like Utah these days. I feel like Utah's a school.
Well, Utah, some of those other teams, though, they came from other conferences.
Right.
So I feel like they get passes, like Colorado gets a pass because, we're welcoming you back.
Right.
But, like you said, I'm excited to see. And USC probably has the largest challenge in terms of where they've entered. And there will be no rest for them throughout the schedule. So they'll be really tested, and it starts off early with LSU. I'm going to say LSU takes this one. Yeah. I think that just a better team, just more ready, and I think that USC would have to play perfect, and I don't know if on day one they'll be ready to do that.
Right.
Moving on to the NFL, we have CeeDee Lamb signing a massive 4-year, $136 million deal. Right. That is $34 million a year, making him the highest paid receiver in the league.
Buddy. You're not that guy.
By the way,
pal.
He's not. Let me be clear. Ayuk shouldn't be on this list, but he's nonetheless still mad he hasn't got the contract extension, and he's seeing boys left and right, putting that pen to paper and putting smiles on their faces. I'm just saying this to say congratulations. And for those who have drafted him in fantasy, you can now check that off your list of worries in terms of
he's back.
Thank you.
CD, he's back.
Thank you. So, next we'll just jump immediately to our teams, our boys, our dogs. We're going to attack individually the Niners, the Raiders. Three-man rosters have released. That means cuts have happened. Does that mean these rosters are final? No, but does it mean that you have a pretty good idea of the dust being settled and what this is going to look like moving forward? Yes. So I'll start it off. We can go over just the rooms here. For me, no surprises in terms of the quarterbacks. We kept all three, Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs, right behind good old Brock Purdy. Both of these guys, Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs, played phenomenally. I think Josh Dobbs should be the backup. I think he just adds a little other element, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Brandon Allen because of his similarity to the way Brock Purdy plays. And we all know Shanahan is just big on wanting to keep games scripted the same. And, if I were the GM, I'd force Josh Dobbs, but I understand the way he coaches. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it's not that, but I'm glad that we've taken the three of them. Running backs, we have CMC, the big dog, the number one in fantasy. If you got that opportunity to take that, and sometimes two, like my boy got able to snag that, whoever made that mistake, rip that boy.
Sorry about it.
But yeah, so we got CMC. We got Jordan Mason. If you don't know who Jordan Mason is, man, look him up, man. You're not going to want to not know his name when he's coming and running you smooth over. Like your favorite DB and your favorite linebacker, when he gets smacked by Jordan Mason, trust me, you're going to come back to this clip and be like, man, he told me to look him up, though. Right? This is a hard-running, undrafted free agent who's been with us for literally 3 years now, and he's knocked out every third-round pick we've drafted. So we've had at least two that I can think of for sure who were drafted 100%. We had Sermon and we had Price, who were both drafted to come in, be these guys, these big beasts for us. And each year he supplanted them, got them off the roster, and he's now the big number two because Elijah Mitchell has been injured, and now we've put him on out for the entire year. IR. So now it's a guarantee that Jordan Mason is that. Well-deserved. Next, we have Isaac Garendo, who is our kind of super tall, 6 foot, super dope. He runs a 4.38, but he runs high, though. So he's going to have to learn to – because he's tall. He's like 6'1", and he runs really fast, but he runs kind of like a track guy instead of like a running back. And so he's going to have to learn how to do that if he wants to get a lot more reps, but he's really good. He specializes in pass catching out the backfield, and he's also a kick returner. Which I think we saw him almost take one back in one of the preseasons. I think he's going to benefit a lot from the new kickoff style because of his running style. So until he learns to change it, the one benefit we will get from him is him running it back on this new kick return. Exactly. Then we have Patrick Taylor, who, this is just a guy who's going to be on the back end, probably practice squadding it. Another undrafted guy, real beast, though. Then we have Kyle Juszczyk, who, if you don't know, that's like our Swiss Army knife. He's really a fullback, but at the end of the day, he's going to be in the running back room because we don't have a fullback room. But he does. There's times where he will take snaps as the halfback. So it's all good. I love that room. I think it's really strong, but it all does hinge on CMC. Wide receiver, we have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, Jacob Cowling, Chris Conley, Ronnie Bell. Very strong room again. Glad we're taking 7 due to the Brandon Ayuk stuff. You got to have that many receivers if there's any debate. Obviously, this room is much stronger if Brandon Ayuk is there. Tight end, we have George Kittle and Jake Tongs. This is a huge surprise for me. So, we had Eric Saubert, who I thought was phenomenal, real beast blocker. And then we had our former third-round pick, Cam Latu, and a guy that we were high on at one point, Braden Willis, all getting cut for an undrafted free agent out of Cal.
Tongs, baby.
Out of Cal. So we take Tongs, and from what I've heard, it's because he can block. And we do know Cal does teach blocking pretty well. We put a lot of O-linemen in the league. So he ends up making the cut as our second tight end. I think there may still be some moves to come. But, wow, that was a surprise. Offensive line, I'm just going to go over these really fast because skill positions I know is kind of what you guys want to hear. Aaron Banks, Jake Breedle, Dominic Pooney, Colton McKivens, Spencer Burford, Jalen Moore, Nick Zakij, and John Feliciano. Boy, that name. Sorry, Nick. This is a good room. Again, not our strongest. Jalen Moore, I think hopefully if he can come back, he can be a great tackle. He's a huge monstrosity of a man, but he's always dealt with these injuries. And then, of course, we can get Trent Williams
hopefully
back into that room. No, I mean, he's coming, but it'll be interesting to see.
Pay that man.
He'll get paid. But once he's back in there, that room is obviously significantly better. Defensive line, maybe our strongest group. I mean, this is where you just start getting into just stacked units. You have Nick Bosa. You have the Gravedigger, Javon Hargraves, Malik Collins, who comes in from the Texans, savvy veteran, Leonard Floyd, who is an absolute beast, who's been on the Rams, Bears. He's been an absolute tyrant on the outside to deal with. Yetur Gross-Matos, who also is another guy who's been, here and there on different teams, but very, very productive pass rusher for the limited snaps he gets. Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, Robert Beal Jr., who Robert Beal Jr. is a sleeper to get some time, and Sam Okuayinyonu. So, again, my bad, Sam. He's a guy that, because we've had some injuries, he got brought onto the roster. We'll see how long he lasts, but the team apparently likes him a lot. Linebackers, Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell, D. Winters, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, Curtis Robinson, and Tatum Bethune. This is a good group, obviously. It's even stronger, when you can go ahead and get my boy Greenlaw back in there. Fred Warner, all-pro Fred. We all know what's going on with that. Devondre Campbell, I think, is a big pickup from Green Bay. He's a year out from being a Pro Bowl selection. I think a lot of Green Bay underperformed last year, so I think he's one of those guys where he will get stats just by being in our defense. And then my dark horse for this group is D. Winters. I think D. Winters is amazing. I loved him at TCU, 6th-round pick. This is a guy that has been learning a lot from Fred. He's very similar to Fred, a little undersized, very fast. But in our scheme, in our position, he's going to be a beast. Cornerbacks, Charvarius Ward, Diamondor. I don't want to kill his name, but they call him Demo. Renardo Green, Isaac Yadam, Darrell Luter, and Ambry Thomas. I was pretty surprised we cut Rock Ya-Sin, but again, the top four makes sense. And Luter apparently, after drafting him, he had a very injured-riddled rookie year. I guess he put together a good offseason, so it makes sense for that. Ambry Thomas is definitely going to go on injured reserve. He broke his hand, so he won't be there, but it'll be interesting to see how they rotate the rest of that. But the top four, Javarius Ward, Demo Lenore, Renardo Green, and Isaac Yadam were exactly who we thought they were going to be in terms of order. Strong group. I'm actually very impressed with that group compared to most years. Most years I look at that group and I go, let's just move past. Safeties, Talanoa Hufanga, the big dog, Jair Brown, who's been massive, a huge piece for us since drafting him 2 years ago out of Penn State. George Odom, the lovely veteran you always got to add in there. And then Malik Mustafa, who is the rookie this year from Wake Forest. Super hard hitter. Kind of reminds me of Dante Hittner. Doesn't really have the coverage skills yet, but he will drop in the box and he will deliver something. So I like that group. It's very young, headlined by obviously Hufanga and Jair Brown. And if Malik Mustafa can make an impact like I think he can, that group can go from being good to great. Special teams, Jake Moody, Mitch Wisnowski. Nothing special here. This is exactly who we thought they were going to be. Both valid members of the team. Shout out to the boys. And like I said, I already did a little surprise cut. My major surprise cut would be Eric Sauber. And watching him, I thought he fit our system so well. I thought we looked for a guy like that, a blocking tight end who also can catch, give a little relief to George Kittle, but clearly this Tongues guy who I don't watch enough tight end blocking, so I didn't even see a lot of him. But, I trust the regime.
Right. He was doing his thing at Cal. Jaden Knott was getting a lot of open lanes.
Facts.
For the Raiders, you got the quarterback room. It's going to be between your boy Gardner Minshew and your boy Aiden O'Connell. Looking like Gardner Minshew is going to be the guy. It's going to be tough. They are Brock Purdy-ish, so hopefully they can do good with the receivers and skill players that we have, which leads me to Zamir White and Alexander Madison. Two big question marks again in the quarterbacks and in the running back rooms. Kind of guys just trying to find their bearings in the league. Gardner Minshew, a career, travel guy, been on many teams, been a backup everywhere. Kind of just been maybe like a 6 to 8 game hot quarterback. We'll see if he can figure things out and, push it to a whole season. Zamir White, still yet to be seen whether he can handle the full load of taking all the runs and catching out of the backfield, seeing if he can be somebody who can average more than 2 or 3 yards a carry, because that's something that has plagued the Raiders, especially with their offensive line that they have nowadays. Then we got our wide receivers, tight ends. We got wide receivers, Jacoby Myers. We got Devontae Adams out there. You can't really go wrong with them. Whoever else is out there, we got Trey Tucker. He's going to be a big, big impact player for us. He's been a young guy who's really opened the field up, going downfield. So those three, I think, are going to be clutch for our wide receiver core. And then we got Michael Mayer and we got Brock Bowers as our tight ends. Both can block and both can pass catch. So I think we really need to utilize them, especially Gardner Minshew, if you're not comfortable enough throwing to the outside to Devontae Adams because maybe the arm's not there. You got guys in between the stripes that can make a lot of catches and create a lot of yak after catch, From then on, we got our defensive line, obviously highlighted by Max Crosby. The guys are going to hold it down, I think, having Antonio Pierce as the head coach, primarily a defensive guy, has really rallied the defensive side of the football for us. I think they're going to be showing out a lot more, especially Jack Jones. I think he's going to be the main guy for the quarterbacks. He's somebody that Antonio Pierce brought in, played for him in high school, and has really been a huge clutch player. I think he's brought the cornerback room to another level. And I think just having more guys like Christian Wilkins, who's just a new guy that we got from Miami, big signing for us. I think he's going to be clutch in there to work with Max Crosby and be able to get sacks, which is something that we haven't been able to create as a team. The Raiders are the team that constantly sends 7 or 8 guys at the quarterback, and then don't get to them. So that's what I'm looking to see from the defense primarily is having our defensive line create problems so that our guys in the backfield can really make things happen as the DBs. Because we've seen, as I said, Jack Jones have a few pick sixes, especially against Patrick Mahomes, showing that they have the savvy back there. So it's going to be exciting to see them. We got guys like Trayvon Morey, who we'll see if he can really take that next step as a safety and really solidify himself as a potential Pro Bowler, because that's what we're going to need out of him if we're going to have a solid defense. After that, we just got our regular guys, A.J. Cole, Daniel Carlson, holding it down for our kicker and punter. Top guys, Pro Bowlers every year.
He's a beast.
So it's, same old you're going to see from them, consistency at an all-time high. But it really does come down to our linebackers. We got Amari Burney, Divine Diablo, who really stepped up last year. Tommy Eichenberg, who's somebody who we can hope can be a solid player coming in out of college. And then we got Robert Spillane as well. So a diverse group. Hopefully they can all gel and just be a part of a team concept and just hold it down for the linebackers for us, because they are guys who tend to get burnt when they're out there having to play one-on-one against tight ends. So that's the roundup for the Raiders. I'm optimistic. I see a lot of teams or a lot of pundits out there talking like, oh, the Raiders are going to be nothing because look at the quarterback room. And, it's not too difficult to blame them. It does look suspect. But at the same time, with the weapons that we have, if our O-line holds up, I think Gardner Minshew can at least be consistent enough, not making maybe all the wow plays, but being somebody who just get the guys the ball and let them get the yards after the catch.
Yeah, let them do the wow.
So, let them do it because that's what they do. So I'm optimistic. Some people think we're going to be a lottery team, but I think if we were 8-9 last year with Aiden O'Connell with the back half of the season, I think we can do a little. I got to assume we're going to do a little bit better with Gardner Minshew, and that means, 11-7 or, something like that, which is maybe pushing wild card, because we know the Kansas City Chiefs are always going to be probably the number one team unless we keep taking them down, because we did win both games last year against Kansas City.
Facts. They got their number. So how do you feel about this offensive line group? Is there any names?
DJ Glazem and Andre James, Jordan Meredith, Colton Miller, just a lot of the same names that we've had over the last couple of years. So really it's just coming down to if they're improving and if they're gelling, because that's what a lot of offensive lines come down to. Jackson Powers-Johnson, the guy we just got from Oregon, the center, know where he's going to play. It might be center, it might be right guard. Yeah. But he's going to be somebody who's going to also bring a lot of excitement and a lot of talent to that position. And I thought he was a pretty good steal in the second round for the Raiders.
Hell yeah. That was one of those steals where I was not exactly sure why he dropped, whether it was like scheme or because it wasn't a character thing. So it was really weird. Everybody highlighted it. Everybody was like, what? What just happened? So I think that room, when I look at it on paper, is like surprisingly strong for what the Raiders kind of usually field. I mean, Andrus Peat is nice. Jackson Powers-Johnson is nice. Colton Miller is definitely a suitable left tackle. DJ Glaze is solid. Munford is pretty good. I don't know much about
Dylan Parham. Solid. He's been a Raider for a while.
Yeah. So this team, I mean, like you said, there's new faces, but the continuity is there enough to where you'd like to see Minshew hop in and be able to.
And hopefully Tyree Wilson can pop up.
Good Lord, please. Or trade him. Or let him go.
That was a top pick, and we need to unleash him. And I feel like Antonio Pierce did do a pretty good job of doing that last season. It was really the first half with Josh McDaniels where it was just kind of getting handcuffed.
And it should only be easier with Christian Wilkins. Like, if you can't now, nobody's going to be watching you. Yeah. So, that's a great point, though. That could be, if he does take that next step, then that room and that overall edge rush.
Because, bro, physically is a monster.
Thor, So there you go. There's our likes, our dislikes. Obviously, when there's little changes that come out, we'll keep you guys up to date or whatnot. And if there's any big transactions in terms of free agents that get added from here that we haven't seen yet or trades that happen, of course, we'll keep you all updated on those as well. But that is our first glance. Just quick overview of what we see and how we feel with both these teams. Good luck to both of the teams. I know both the fan bases are itching, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
We got a beautiful season ahead of us.
I feel like we had the best game of the whole preseason, too.
24-24.
The most exciting game all the time.
Absolutely.
It was back and forth the whole game.
Absolutely. And it's always a fun game between the Raiders and Niners. The fan bases, just the history, the cultures creates a good sporting event.
And it ended in typical Raiders fashion where it was just a whole circus. At the end, the ball was just getting thrown everywhere.
Every which way.
Didn't know what was going to happen.
At all.
Like it always is, the other team ended up in the end zone.
Right. Yeah.
It didn't count, but
I was like, hold on.
That's how it always
actually
lost.
Wait,
how did they get that? What? Out of all that, did nobody pick it up?
Almost actually lost this for us. Yeah. So next, before we kind of get up out of the NFL, we're just gonna give you guys a little sprinkle of fantasy. Brees or Bijan? Who's the best running back after CMC? This is probably one of the bigger questions in terms of first round, where the draft starts taking a real swing. And so, between usually you're left with that option of kicking it off with a Brees or Bijan, and then that kind of sends the draft in a direction. Who you taking, Brees or Bijan, and why?
Man, this is a really tough decision because I feel like Brees and Bijan are both going to sit here and wonder what's going on with my quarterback situation. Is Aaron Rodgers going to come back and be a solid player? Because then if that's the case, then I might not get as many touches if I'm Brees Hall. But at the same time, if my offense is better, maybe that's more opportunities.
Or touchdowns.
Same with Bijan for Atlanta. Is Kirk Cousins going to come in and revamp that offense? Is the new offensive coordinator going to be a guy who's going to unleash everybody? Is Drake London going to be the guy that everybody's seen him be as a number one, have a quarterback who can actually throw it to him? So I think if it's up to me, I'm going to go Brees Hall, but it's only because I think if Kirk Cousins goes off, there's just more options where I feel like for the Jets, it's Garrett Wilson or Brees Hall. So I think Brees Hall is somebody who can carry about 250 times. I think he can be a workhorse. I think he's going to be their third down back. Really don't know who's behind him at all. So I think it's all going to be relying on him. And if he doesn't get injured like he did before, this guy puts up crazy numbers. So I know Bijan's going to be great too. I just think after what I've seen from them, they might have more options to use, and they may only utilize them for maybe yards and maybe not goal line opportunity.
Yeah. I think it's really hard. I think Mitch really, knocked this one out the park in terms of getting the main points that I would cover. I think the only thing that you didn't mention that for me plays a big part is, they've switched over from Arthur Smith,
right,
who was so run heavy. And really at the end of the day needed two running backs to even run his offense because of how much they ran it. And Raheem Morris is not going to do the same thing.
Nah.
And then, of course, everything that they did in the offseason, aligns with that theory that they're not going to try to be the, one of the heavier rushing teams or rushing attacks in the league. And so I think that also plays a big part in Bijan this year. I think they're going to force it in the air. I think I think they feel like
Kyle Pitts and Drake London, they got to throw it.
I think they feel like they haven't developed those two enough. I think based on what they've done in these last couple of years, and I think that the way they're going to end up looking at Bijan is Bijan's so talented that he'll find a way to get involved in the script that they're using. Whereas we've all witnessed now, Kyle Pitts and Drake London, they're not going to be able to find ways to magically work their way into a rushing attack because they're also not super skilled blockers, right? So they're not going to have that George Kittle game where you might not see it on the stats, but everybody on the other team felt it. That's just not happening, right? So I think a lot of the front office, rightfully so, is realizing, hey, we haven't put an offense out here that's conducive to who we're drafting. And so now we got to do as such. And I think that, Bijan will hurt from that. Do I think that it'll hurt in a way that doesn't make him worth a first-round pick? Absolutely not. I'm just comparing him to Brees. Right. And then, like you said, I think that Aaron Rodgers is actually going to raise his ceiling. Do I think it'll take away from some of the touches? Not really, just because I think that the Jets weren't even on the field enough last year to really even be like, are you going to be a workhorse? And so I think that he'll at least have the opportunity to be such because they'll be in games, right? And even when they're down 7 or 10, they're not going to sit here and abandon the running game the way they had to last year because it's like we have Kyle Wilson, so we're not coming back. Or Zach Wilson.
Exactly. Kyle Wilson, Zach Wilson,
whatever
same thing. They played terrible.
All of them are butt. So yeah, I definitely would take Brees.
Okay.
So I would unite with you on that. But I do think that I can see why Bijan is being questioned in terms of actually vying for that spot. Just because I actually think Bijan is a much better pass catcher out the backfield than Brees is. But because Brees is not bad at it, he still can be a serviceable pass catcher. I gotta give it to Brees.
Since they're like all gonna probably go in a row, if we're gonna switch over, what do you think about wide receiver? Is it gonna be Tyreek or CeeDee Lamb? Who are you going with?
Yeah. I think it depends on your league, right? Like I think if I'm in PPR, I'm gonna probably go with CD. Because CD is one of the few guys in the league right now in his situation where I could see him getting 10 catches every week.
Game.
You know what I mean? Like any single week, you name it, and told me he got 10, I'd believe it.
Yeah.
And whereas Tyreek's the kind of guy who, he'll get his money off of 6. He can get his money off of 5.
6 for 200 and 3 touchdowns.
But if I'm in a non-PPR league traditionally, I probably take a real long look at Tyreek. And the reason that I feel that way is because when you're picking that high, I want a guy that can just win a week. And I'm not saying CD can't, but like I've talked about in other episodes and in other years, Tyreek does things that before he was doing it, we didn't see wide receivers doing it.
Halftime already got 30.
Yeah, like we didn't see wide receivers doing it. So, I'm gonna have to go ahead and take Tyreek in the regular setting. But those are hard.
Yeah,
those are hard, man. So real fast, just to close out today, I want to give my boy Mitch a quick second to attack this, and we'll open up next week, giving you guys a full-on update on baseball. I know we missed out on baseball, but we don't want to sit here and half-ass it, give you one cheek and not the other. You know what I mean? So we're gonna make sure.
Also, it's only gonna be getting down to the nitty gritty the next episode. So there's still a good amount of games left, but we're trying to wait until it's more towards playoff time, figuring out who's gonna win the wild card. Then we'll give a big update. Just a little quick shout out to the Little League World Series and the boys from Florida did their thing, man.
Was it like Lake Mary or something?
It was Lake Mary, Florida.
Lake Mary
did their thing.
There it is.
Give them a little shout out. They won their first 2 games, lost to Bourne, Texas, another great team during the Little League World Series. Had to win 3 games to get to the championship. Then they had a rematch against Bourne, Texas. Came down to the 6th inning. Came back and won that game to play Chinese Taipei in the whole national championship. And they beat Chinese Taipei again. Came down to extra innings. They came back in the 6th inning, was down 1-0, tied at 1-1. There's a man on second base, and when it comes to extra innings for Little League, Taiwan didn't score, and then they came back and Lake Mary, they bunted, and the pitcher from Taiwan threw it away. There was nobody at first. Guy from second scored, and Lake Mary, the champions. Nobody saw it coming, but they were a great story. They were a great team to see. So if you watched it, you saw how exciting it was.
Absolutely, and that's just another firm reminder for you guys, man. Do not judge a book by its cover. Keep fighting. That's what sports are for. You never know who's going to win. You got to settle it on the field or on the court or wherever the game is done. But that's going to wrap it up for this week. Again, thank you guys for being here. We have a wonderful schedule already getting prepared for next week, so you're going to want to tune in for that. Drop in the comments if there's anything you feel like we aren't covering that you want to see. Again, keep the comment section active with that kind of stuff because you will see it in the shows. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to all of our content that you see on the channel. One love from the Say Something fam. Signing out. Peace.